again. Welcome to Just Keep Parenting. If you haven't tuned in a while, check back at Just Keep Parenting to see all the different ideas that you can use as you talk with children. Lots of ideas for read-alouds and small motor songs to keep their fingers growing and large motor songs to keep their large muscles going. But today I want to talk a little bit about mealtime. We've been having maybe more time to sit down as a family and have mealtime together. And sometimes we've been in Groundhog Day. It's like, what happened today, right? What was different today than about yesterday? And one of the curriculum sources that I use a lot in the lab school is called High Scope. And I've been to a couple of their conferences and absolutely love what they have to offer. And so they send out a mealtime cards that you can use. And rather than purchasing those cards, I thought I might share a couple of them with you here on Just Keep Parenting if you might be struggling to find things to talk about at dinner. At least it starts getting things going, right? And so the first one that they talk about is asking some imagination questions. So if you were a bird, right? If you were a bird, suppose you could fly like a bird. Where would you fly, right? Imagine you were as tall as a giraffe. What would you see? And then another one is if you could be any animal in the zoo, what would you be? What kind of a habitat would you live in? A habitat is where animals live, right? So you're not only encouraging conversation, but you're teaching vocabulary, and they're growing their vocabulary at this point if your children are young, right? So that could be an idea. Another idea that they have down, if we went to school at night, right? So if they went to school in the evening instead of during the day, right? What would you see? What are some things we would do differently if we went to school at night? What would we see outside if we had recess at night? What would we wear to school if we went to school at night? And what would we eat at mealtime, right? Would we have dinner? Would we have breakfast? What would we eat, right? And so opening these imaginations up and just having a good time, right? And you talking about it as well, not just your children, but you giving your ideas to those questions as well. So big vocabulary builders, as well as opening things up to great possibilities. Describing what you're eating, right? So we've talked about in a couple of other videos, we've talked about the listening, right? Just go outside and listen and see what you can listen to. Sometimes we're not very tuned in. We just go through life, just do it. But we've talked a little bit about what are we noticing? What are we listening to, right? What are we smelling? So this is kind of along that idea. Talk about the food that they're eating. What do they notice about it, right? And use all their senses for this, right? And so it will create new words that they've never heard of before that you can have a teaching moment with them. I noticed that my carrot makes a crunchy sound when I eat it. I'm wondering what you're eating that makes a crunchy noise, right? And so getting them to talk about their food. What does it look like? What does it sound like? A crackling sound, right? Does your food make a crackling sound? So great vocabulary words. Things outside, another idea. Talk with the children about things that they might encounter outside, but not inside, right? There's no rain inside. There's not usually, at least in my house, there's not any swings, but I do know in a colleague's house of mine that she does have a hammock swing in her bedroom. And so that would be something that we could compare, right, as we're talking about it. talking about the cars, right? The cars are outside and what color your car is and what kind of a car it is compared to some of our friends across the street. Another idea is to imagine a new ending, right? So if you've recently read, what have you recently read in your family? In my family, I recently read Charlotte's Web. And so talking about a new ending for that book, right? And so coming up with different things, even a children's book, if you've recently read the Stripe book, I can't remember what it is, but the person that has stripes, and talking about new endings there, right? Coming up with a new ending for the princess, the paperback princess. And so having something where the children and the adults are talking and giving opinions and ideas about the same thing. Another one that might be kind of an interesting idea right now, given COVID, is the topic, if I were the teacher, what would I do, right? As most parents have moved into that teacher mode, as schools have been canceled, talking about what they would do if they were the teacher, right? If you were a teacher for a day, what would you do? If you were a teacher during recess, what would you do? If you were teaching math, what would you do? One little girl on the card says, I would eat ice cream all day. And so rather than, getting flustered and saying, well, you can't do that as a teacher, you say, well, what kind of a flavor? What kind of flavor of ice cream would you eat? Would you change it up during the day, right? Sometimes we do get flustered by our children's answers and think, oh, that's not the right answer, right? But instead of getting flustered, we just take it to a new level. We just build it up a little bit more, right? And if you haven't read the book called How to Listen, How to Talk So Children Will Listen, and Listen So Your Kids, that's what it is. So your kids will talk. It's a great book, and it talks about this concept of not being surprised or flustered, but taking it to the next level to get more information out of them, right? Rather than, oh my gosh, what did you just say? And so this would be a good time to practice that, right? In a situation where some things are not as maybe critical as others. Silly rhyming mistakes is the last one. We play a game where we say fooba wooba fooba wooba fooba wooba John, and then we say saw Miss Dory reading a story, fooba wooba saw Miss Dory reading a story, fooba wooba John. And then we take everybody's names, right? And sometimes the kids will say, that's not a real word. No, it's not a real word. It's a silly word. And we're just making up silly words right now. And sometimes it takes silly words to rhyme with different names, right? So you could do that. The other thing that you could do is, I see Callie is wearing a striped girl today, to see if they could figure out, wait a minute, that is not working for me, right? And so being able to figure out, I see Callie is wearing a striped, you'd have to figure that out, right? So model sentences, model names, help them figure out that Callie is wearing a skirt today, right? A skirt and not a girl. So if you're looking for the word that rhymes with shirt, you have to give them the word first. Lots of different ways to do it, but nonetheless, these are some mealtime ideas. Share them with somebody who in your conversations may be struggling with, what do I do while I've got these kids around the table? I know one of the things that, as we've talked about in some of our meetings, is how do we help children to be positive about their day, right? When we ask them, what'd you do today? I don't know, nothing, right? But being able to start with you as well, to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to talk about 3 positive things that happened in my life today. I got to talk to my friend who I haven't talked to in a long time, and I had a meeting that actually went really well today, and I had somebody that brought me some flowers today. And they made my heart really warm, right? And so talking about those, and then that gives them time to kind of process and to kind of go through what happened in their life today. But that's a nice thing that you can do around the kitchen table as well. It's a nice thing you can do at bedtime as you tuck your kids in at night. So thinking about those things in our life that we want them to incorporate into their lives, right? To look at the world a little bit more positively. Those are some good things that we can do. So I hope that you'll be able to find a nugget in here that you can use through your day. And I hope that if you know that somebody is struggling with this, that you can share this with them. Check back to Just Keep Parenting. There's always new material popping up. And make it a great day, everybody.